Everyone catching this on demand is going to be like, what the hell just happened? Oh, you missed it. This is why you got to catch the live shows. Welcome, welcome one and all. Welcome to Firebranded. I am your host, TJ Haynes, the undisputed technician of the truth. And today we're talking about truth that's too hot to handle. We're talking about Pope Leo is concerned about generational rupture in how we pass on the faith. He also has a few things to say about the joy of evangelizing. I got to tell you, I'm not sure I'm on board with that. 30 years an evangelizer, I've got a few things to say about that. We'll get into it. I'm also talking about immigration and ICE raids today from the Catholic perspective, and talking a little bit about the church's response to it and how the church is, talking about it, dealing with it. We're not going to go a whole lot of time on that. And then I'm going to show you a video of an ICE arrest, and I'm going to show you why we need to think twice about shouting for justice, justice, justice when talking about rounding up illegal immigrants. And then we're going to round it out nice and lovely with a new segment that I am calling The Fathers Know Best. This is something that I've been doing for quite some time, actually, in my newsletter, on Discord. And I thought, boy, this would make a great podcast segment, The Fathers Know Best. Which father are we talking about today? We'll be talking about St. Augustine. We're talking about truth and understanding. What does Augustine have to say about that? And I'm going to share with you my own little reflection on that. I'll tell you this, my friends. Knowledge is not understanding. Knowledge is not understanding, and without understanding, you cannot have wisdom. We'll talk about that at the bottom of the show. This recorded live January 31st in the year of our Lord 2026. Thank you, Catholic Church. Wow. Holy cow. This is going to be a great show. I can tell. Do you know why? Because the opener was hot like fire. And then I did my whole intro in perfect sync with when that opening track ended. Can you believe that? I don't think I've ever done that before in my life. Holy cow, this is going to be a good show. And I want to thank you for joining me, those of you catching me on YouTube and on X. Very happy indeed that you're joining me. Listen, I have to tell you, I have a strange love affair, an on-again and off-again love affair with X. I really, really enjoy the platform. But for a long time, the platform hasn't done anything for me in terms of its utility as a tool for evangelizing, and it hasn't done much for my growth. I was not posting to X for a while, and I decided let me just post just because I kind of enjoy it. And I post all kinds of stuff. Sometimes it's politics, sometimes it's religion, sometimes it's spiritual insights. If you're not doing so, please follow me on X. You can follow me all over socials at Real TJ Haynes, but I've been very active on X. Second to that, I'm fairly active on Instagram, and then I'm on the others too, but I don't post to them that aggressively, But follow me on X because I'm also posting like short articles on X, and then I post longer versions of those articles on CatholicFirebrand.com. I also have been doing X Spaces. The way I do that is I do X Spaces sort of as like a mini podcast. So, I don't know, you might want to get involved. Real TJ Haynes on X. I really hope you join me. Make it more worthy of my time. But I do enjoy it. So, I get like almost zero engagement. I get like zero growth. I lose more followers than I gain. But it's okay. I'm enjoying it. So check it out and join me there. All right, let's get on with it. You folks probably are not aware of this, but I did a little podcast on the immigration crisis just this past week. It was an X Spaces session. So I'm not going to harp on that too much here, but I am going to touch on it, the immigration crisis, just a little bit. I'm going to do it fast and furious. That's why I'm doing it first. It's not going to be the heaviest thing that we cover. This, published today by EWTN News, ICE enforcement debate is a matter the U.S. Church simply can't avoid. Archbishop Coakley says the faithful should ask God's grace and God's presence as we address very difficult and challenging situations on the ground, said Coakley. I'm not going to read you the whole article, by the way. I'm just going to read a little and then give you my thoughts. And I'm going to roll a video, something that I talked about in last week's X Spaces session on immigration, but today I'm going to show it to you because now this is video. It's not audio only, so I'm able to show it to you. Written by Teresa Now I have to get this name right. Now it's a vendetta. Gervasini. It's either Gervasini or Gervasini. Teresa, you have to do something with that last name. Change it. Smith is a good name. Easy to say in front of a microphone. Easy to recognize. People remember you. Just saying. Archbishop Paul Coakley said immigration remains a high priority for the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. Now, the reason I'm getting into this, by the way, is I'm not too satisfied with the church's response and opinions on this issue. So listen tight. In a January 30th interview with EWTN News in Depth, Coakley discussed the unrest taking place in our cities, particularly in Minnesota, and the violent outbreak following the recent death of Alex Pretty, the man shot and killed by federal agents. And as you know, folks, there was a woman, I think a week or two before that, who was also shot and killed by ICE. The incident marked the second death by federal agents in the city. Renee Good, that was her name, was shot and killed on January 7th during an ICE protest. Following Pretty's death, Coakley, president of the USCCB, called for his brother bishops and priests across the United States to offer a holy hour for peace. Now, if you're following me on X, you should check my feed because I posted a short article about that letter. Maybe I can just give you, I'm not going to read it, but just to preview like the title and stuff. Give me a second here. But I also posted a longer version of that article on CatholicFirebrand.com. Even if you're subscribed to CatholicFirebrand.com, you probably don't know about that yet because I haven't sent a new newsletter informing you about it, but it is on the website, okay? Okay, so the article on X, it's a short article. I don't do long stuff on X, but these are much longer than just posts, okay? It's a short article. Coakley calls for holy hour for peace, but calls for holy hour of peace, but does it tilt left? Does his letter tilt left a little bit? On first pass, it truly does tilt left a little bit. And this is what the article was about. If you look at the letter carefully, you'll see it's actually pretty balanced, but it does seem to pander to political liberals in that it doesn't do enough to reflect and represent genuine concerns by conservatives. You'll find that article on my X feed, Real TJ Haynes. You will also find it on CatholicFirebrand.com. Even though it hasn't gone out in a newsletter yet, it's on the website. You can check it out. I think the article on EWTN News continues. I think in view of the anger, the violent reactions that are taking place, we felt prompted to try to change the tone of the conversation and call people, not necessarily to avoid any kind of public witness, so like the demonstrations are public witness. Even if you're in support of ICE within reason, from a Catholic perspective, that is also public witness, right? Call people not necessarily to avoid any kind of public witness, but really to call people to give witness by prayer. Very important. Now, my issue with the church's response to this is that the church, the Catholic mind on immigration is basically this. A nation has a right to its borders. A nation has a right to have laws and to enforce laws that protect and enforce its borders. That's just true. Pope Leo has also kind of said that, not as explicitly as I'm saying it, but pretty clearly. Pope Leo himself said no one is calling for open borders, and indeed the church is not calling for open borders. Also of note, the borders are not closed. People have to realize that the borders are not closed. So ICE actions are not aligned with the closure of the border. The borders are still open, but through a front door. The border is not open through a back window or through a secret entrance down into the basement, down through the basement. Okay, something to remain aware of. Now, that's the church mind. I often feel, however, that whenever individual bishops, not Coakley, not that I'm aware of, but frequently when individual bishops talk about this, they really are talking about it almost exclusively from the perspective of mercy, right? we have to be good to the stranger. We have to protect the stranger, provide for the stranger, and so on and so on. Some go so far as to say, remember, the Holy Family were immigrants in Egypt. No, they were not immigrants in Egypt. The Holy Family fleeing to Egypt is the same as someone fleeing from Michigan to Montana, because Egypt was part of the Roman Empire. So we hear some things from some individual bishops like that, some things like that from individual bishops. Often, I feel like the church hangs out to dry people who are more conservative on this issue. Also, people who are more conservative on this issue tend to be a little merciless when it comes to this issue, a little bit merciless. I'm going to show you a video in like 60 seconds that demonstrates this, okay? In the video, we hear something emblematic of what many, not all, of course, but many on the conservative side of things tend to engender. No mercy. Father, what's his name? Father Altman himself said, no more mercy. We hear this tone a lot. Pack them up and ship them out. Better be careful what you ask for, because if that's how we're approaching this issue, how do you know that you won't be judged with the same rigor and strictness when you meet Jesus at Judgment Day? And Judgment Day isn't 1,000 years away. Judgment Day first happens when you die, when you face Jesus. That's not 1,000 years away. That could be tomorrow. Could be tonight. Be careful how you judge, because the measure by which you judge is the measure by which how you will be judged. People need to keep that in mind. So I do feel like the church often takes, I don't like using left and right when talking about the church, because the truth encompasses the whole. There are people on the left, or the left does have some of the truth. See, the truth is not fragmented. The truth is whole when it comes from God. But when it manifests in the human order, it gets screwy. It doesn't change. Our orientation to it changes. So the truth manifests on the left, on the liberal side of things, whether it's political, theological, whatever. The truth manifests on the left, but not in total. The truth also manifests on the right, but not in total. The church teaches the whole truth insofar as it's capable of understanding it, which is pretty deeply. So when we're talking about the truth as taught by the church, because the church teaches what God teaches, and God is the truth itself, or truth himself. So when the church teaches a truth, it's going to teach some things that you'll find in liberalism, whether it's political, theological, whatever, and it's going to teach some things that are true in conservatism. And it reconstitutes it, and it creates a whole truth that's sort of left-leaning and sort of right-leaning. You understand? Because the church teaches the truth encompasses the whole truth that you find everywhere scattered in the human order. So that's the church's position. But often I feel individual prelates tend to lean more left on this, and I wish they wouldn't, because it is not crazy to say we have a right to enforce our borders. That is not crazy. It is not crazy that I don't want illegal immigrants passed out in my front yard where my children play. That is not crazy. It is not crazy that at a meatpacking plant in, I think it was Omaha, I talked about this in the last episode, that X Spaces session. It's not crazy that 80 illegal immigrants were employed at a meatpacking plant in Omaha, some of them for years, okay? ICE came and arrested them. That doesn't mean 80 people got deported. It just means 80 people were arrested. Some were deported, some were processed, and some were released after processing. The next day, that meatpacking plant was filled with applicants from locals, filled with applicants who were locals looking for a job. It is not crazy to say, shouldn't locals have first dibs at those jobs if they're willing to do them? 80 people got heisted, and people flooded the place the next day looking for work. Isn't that just? Isn't that just? So more often than not, I feel like the church leans left because the church is leaning in the direction of mercy. And I believe God also leans in the direction of mercy. But God does not forget justice. God does not forget that things should be the way they should be in the order of the truth, in the order of justice. Sometimes I think the church reaches so far to take a position of mercy that it winds up leaving conservatism, whether it's political, theological, doesn't matter, out to dry. Let's go to this video talking about justice and mercy. This is a video that I saw on X that really kind of disturbed me. Let's chit-chat about it. Now, I want you to look at this post. Just in, agents smashed the window of an illegal's car in Minnesota and yanked him out. And he goes on to say, more of this. Do not back down, ICE. More of this. More of what exactly? Let's have a look at what he's calling for more of.
Hey, move her out.
Pulls the guy out of the car.
Stay right there.
Now, this is a second character they pulled out. So there were two guys in there that they were arresting. Those are whistles and warning signs that anti-ICE people are blowing to warn illegal immigrants that ICE is on the job.
Leave her because she got the baby.
It says, leave her because she has a baby. Now listen. He says, close the door. Close the door. She says, I'm going with my husband.
Hey, put him in the car. Don't let her. Put him in the car. What are we doing? You're taking him to Whipple. And give me his ID.
Okay, so they're trying to process this guy. They're looking for his ID. She's trying to get into the car that they've taken her husband into, but they won't let her. There's the woman crying and pleading with the guy. She says in Spanish, it's either sir, why, or Lord, why. She blesses herself as she's saying it, so she might be saying Lord, why.
Señor, ¿por qué? Yeah,
It's pretty heart-wrenching stuff. Truth or justice is applied, there is always pain. That's something you have to be aware of. Whenever truth or justice is applied outside of yourself or within yourself, in your life, in your heart, in your soul, whenever truth or justice is applied, there is always pain. Whenever you punish your children, there is pain, but it's intended to lead to an ultimate good, right? But that's important to remember. Whenever truth is applied, there is always pain if you're on the wrong side of the truth. It's true within yourself, and it's true when truth is applied outside of yourself, anywhere else, in the human order, in your home, whatever. So we have to keep that in mind, that just because the truth brings pain, that doesn't mean we avoid it. The truth has to be made manifest. Justice, order, and so on. But think carefully. When it comes time for you to be judged by the Lord, how much of that truth do you want him to manifest in your judgment? A little? A lot? How much truth do you want manifested? Or would you rather that he come with mercy first? Would you rather that he even maybe forget justice altogether? We have to keep that ethic in mind when we are applying truth in our own lives, in the lives of others that we're responsible for, in our household, in our communities. We have to keep that in mind. Again, going back to the example of punishing your children, I would rather not punish my children. But if I don't, they go way off the rails. Children are only children for a little while. Eventually, they're going to be grown-ups. And I've been telling them this since they were very, very young. I'm not raising you to be good children. I'm raising you to be good adults. You just haven't gotten there yet. And sometimes, so when I started telling this to my oldest, he might have been 7. So that was about the age range that I started dropping this knowledge on my kids. Sometimes, see, I'm not raised, so I would say something like this. I'm not raising you to be a good child. I'm raising you to prepare you to be a good preteen. And then I'm going to be preparing you to be a good teenager. And then I'm going to really start preparing you to be a good man or a good woman. I'm not teaching you to be good at who you are now. I'm preparing you to be good at who you're going to be, who you're supposed to be, who you are meant to be. We have to keep that in mind whenever we apply justice or ask for justice or truth to be applied in ourselves, in our homes, and so on. So this woman's breakdown is heart-wrenching. What's the response to that? Don't arrest illegal aliens or illegal migrants or illegal immigrants? Or is there a middle ground that can be approached in response to that? Maybe if someone is here who's not a criminal, who's been working for a couple of years, they're living an ordinary American life even though they're not here legally, maybe there is more mercy that can be brought to bear there. What form does that take? I don't know. Should they be getting EBT cards? Probably not. Should they be hauled off to a jail? I would think probably not. I'm not an expert and I don't presume to know what the middle ground is. But what I do know from a Catholic perspective, as we apply it to local or national politics, we have to remember to bring mercy to bear. We have to remember to bring mercy to bear. Obviously, hardened criminals, you just get them out. I'm not so sure this woman was married to a hardened criminal because she was really distraught. She's truly in love with this guy she was married to who's being arrested. Was there a better way for border enforcement to happen there? In this case, it was through ICE. Was there a better way for border enforcement to happen there? And again, I mean, the answer is yes, I think so. But we have to keep this in mind, too, and then I'm going to move on. We don't know what happens to him after he's arrested. I don't think he'll be deported, but I have no idea. But it's possible also he will be processed and released, or processed and taken to court and then released. We don't know. It's not really, ICE or border enforcement doesn't have to have a one-size-fits-all. Not everyone who's arrested is deported. Many people are. So we have to keep that in mind. We have to dispel this idea, this image in our heads that, as I said in the X Spaces session, dispel with this idea that he's going to be flown over Honduras and thrown out of a plane with a parachute on his back. It doesn't necessarily go that way all the time. Okay? Something to keep in mind. All right, phase 2. Let's get to the next part of this goodness. Why don't I play some traveling music for a moment while I get this on my screen, see if there's anybody chatting up anywhere. So far, there appears to not be anyone chatting up anywhere, which is totally okay. Just want to remind you again, follow me everywhere on socials, Real TJ Haynes, especially on X, because X is such an easy platform to post to. It's not like Instagram, which I'm pretty active on Instagram, but not as much. But on Instagram, every time you want to express yourself on Instagram, it's a visual. That takes work. It's a lot easier. And especially if you're someone like me who always has some thoughts to share, it's easier to be on a platform where you can just type it, you know? So Real TJ Haynes on socials, especially on Twitter. Listen, if you're not on Twitter, check this out. I may be the one reason for you to get a Twitter account or an X account and follow me over there on X, Real TJ Haynes. All right, let me move on here. Sorry for the delays. Let's talk about this article. Pope Leo to the Dicastery for the Doctrine of Faith. All right, that's about as good as it's getting. Pope Leo to DDF, Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith. Let's rediscover the joy of transmitting the faith, written by Deborah Castellano-Luboff from Vatican News. Pope Leo the 16th, 14th. Sorry, I'm a little off on my Roman numerals. Pope Leo the 14th. You would think I would just remember which Pope Leo he is, but that always slips my mind. Pope Leo insisted that the transmission of the faith is a matter of great urgency in our time when addressing the plenary assembly of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith on Thursday in the Vatican. Greeting the members of the Dicastery, the Pope said he was well aware of the valuable services they carry out, blah, 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 blah. Addressing the DDF officials, the Pope said, your task is to offer clarifications regarding the doctrine of the Church. For those of you who don't know, that's what the DDF is for. Okay, I'll say it again. To clarify questions or matters or confusion, to bring clarification regarding doctrines of the Catholic Church. Okay, that's basically the doctrinal office. Okay, expressing gratitude for the documents of let me just fast forward because this is going to get boring quick. I'm fast forwarding to this section here. Amid indifference, rediscover the joy of evangelizing. Indeed, Pope Leo insisted, we cannot ignore the fact that in recent decades, a rupture has occurred in the generational transmission of the Christian faith among the Catholic people. A rupture has occurred in the transmission of the Catholic faith, especially in context of ancient evangelization. The number is growing of those who no longer perceive the gospel as a fundamental resource for their own existence, particularly among the younger generation. So let me simplify that. The Pope is basically saying we're not handing down the faith as efficiently as we used to. This is especially worrisome or worrying when you look at the whole history of evangelization in the church. Okay, we used to pass it down like it was gold. Now we pass it down like it's, I don't know, a piece of paper with a nice coloring on it. Sort of valuable, sort of cute, but not that important. That's what he's talking about. This is of particular concern among younger generations. He also lamented, as I go back to the article, he also lamented how many young men and women live without any reference to God or to the church, noting that while this causes us believers great sorrow, it must lead us to rediscover the sweet and comforting joy of evangelizing, which lies at the very heart of the life and the mission of the bride of Christ. So first, let me get into what he said and then offer a little bit of pushback. For some reason, and the reasons are pretty complex and layered, Catholics, my generation and maybe one generation ahead of me, don't consider the faith to be that important. I think as secular culture became more and more Christianized, as I put it, so you have, for instance, politicians who say moral things, even though they're dirty scumbags. They say things like, love one another. Love is love. We got to love everybody. Take care of your neighbor. Well, that sounds very Christian. So because the truth starts with God, of course, comes to the world through the Christian faith, voiced by the Catholic Church, defended by the Catholic Church, it has so saturated the secular world that now you get secular people talking a little bit like Catholics, but it's not actually the truth. Love is not true, for instance. But you have the word love in there, so it's almost sort of like the truth. Close enough. Bingo. So because it almost, in other words, religion almost seems unnecessary because they're getting the same message elsewhere. And they're getting messaging that's harder, has backbone. Often the messaging they receive from the church, parish level, diocesan level, global level, doesn't matter. Often the messaging from the church seems to have no backbone. I'm not saying it doesn't, and I'm not saying it always doesn't, but it seems to have no backbone. Okay? That's a problem. That's a problem. So people think the faith is not that important, and they also begin to think that, sorry, someone called me. Now my brain is distracted. They also seem to think it's not that important, and also the messaging seems like in itself it is not that important. We can get the same messaging from the secular world. So now people regard religion and faith almost as furniture to their lives rather than the house itself. Furniture. It's subjective. I like it. I don't like it. I can pick and choose which one I want. I can furnish my whole house, and if I get bored with it, I just throw it all out and get something else. So people are not handing it down like it's important. This is particularly true depending on where your family is from, okay? American families, right? The tradition of American families is going to be different from the tradition of Irish families or German families, that sort of background, okay? If you were raised by traditional Irish parents, they handed down the faith. Oh boy, did they hand down the faith. German parents, less so. Polish parents, absolutely. Spanish-speaking nations, it's hit or miss, you know. So that's the problem the church faces. My pushback, though, is this. This causes believers great sorrow. Rediscover the sweet and comforting joy of evangelizing. I have to tell you, as an evangelizer for 30-plus years, you know what's really sweet and comforting? Not evangelizing. I took about a year. It had to have been a little bit more than a year, but I took some time off from evangelizing, like completely. No broadcasting, no writing, no parish work, no diocesan work, nothing. And boy, was that relaxing. I felt so refreshed. I was much more dialed in spiritually. It's hard work. Now, the Pope is not talking strictly about what I do. The Pope is talking about evangelizing with your life, living good Christian lives, evangelizing by handing down the faith to your children. My point, though, is sometimes that isn't very joyful. Sometimes it's hard. Have you ever tried, for instance, to teach your children to pray the rosary? Isn't that fun? The pushback you get, the annoyance, the whining, doesn't matter how old they are. That's a discipline to build, and it's a hard discipline to build. It isn't always joyful, evangelizing. Sometimes it brings a lot of pain, right? The resistance that you get, the nature of the resistance that you get, which is different from children as it is from adults, different from adult to adult, the nature of the pain that you get. It's often very inconvenient, and it's hard to do because it challenges you, challenges your mind. How do I teach this? How do I convey this? How do I share this? Challenges your patience, challenges your time, right? The time that you spend evangelizing, whatever form that takes, is time you're not spending relaxing, playing with your children, whatever it is. Obviously, you have to prioritize your family, but you know what I mean. It's taxing and it's painful, but you have to do it anyway. On a small level, on a great level, we have to do this because it's similar to what I say. Who is praying for the poor souls in purgatory now that everyone thinks as soon as you die, you go to heaven? Now there's nobody praying for them, right? Well, who's evangelizing when everybody thinks evangelization is not necessary because the church is not important? It's nice, but it's not necessary. The faith is not necessary. You get the same moral messaging from secularists. Well, who's left to evangelize when the whole world thinks that way? So if you really want to stay on top of everything I'm doing, live stuff, on-demand stuff, video or audio or both, whatever, do please check out CatholicFirebrand.com, because when you subscribe there, you'll get notifications of different things that I'm doing. And it's not going to be frequent. It's not like I send out an email every day. It's not like that at all. You get notifications of the new episodes, new things that I've written. CatholicFirebrand.com. Put your email address in there. I don't spam you. I don't share your information, but it's the best way for you to stay on top of what I'm doing, where I'm moving and shaking, sticking, and floating around. All right? Okay, let's get into this now. Finally. So this is a little thing that I call The Fathers Know Best. I used to do this regularly, I think like once a week, in my old newsletter. I don't know, maybe I'm the kiss of death. I don't know. But every time I sent out a newsletter, I lost a bunch of subscribers to the newsletter. I don't understand. But it didn't take off. I also do this in a channel on my Discord server, discord.gg/firebrand. I also do that on a channel on my Discord server. But my perception is people didn't care about it that much, which is okay. Just because I think it's cool doesn't mean other people are going to like it. I was going to remove it from my Discord channel today, and I thought, you know what? I've got a great podcast segment here staring me right in the face, and I never even realized it. The Fathers Know Best. So I'm going to make this a regular, maybe every time I podcast, I'm going to do a segment like this. Okay, The Fathers Know Best. And here is basically what that is. Each segment is centered around a theme, a church father who has said something about that theme, and then my reflection on what the church father said and my own spin on it. Okay, the fathers know best. So this is the first time I'm doing this as a podcast segment. I don't know why this idea never struck me before. Okay. I may also start posting these as short articles on X. I don't see why not. I used to make this a Discord exclusive, but I don't think the Discordians over there who are on my server, I think some of them might like it and some of them are like, oh, I don't know. So maybe I won't do it as an exclusive on Discord. Maybe I'll also start posting it to my X articles and also including it as write-ups on CatholicFirebrand.com so you can be sure not to miss them. And I really want to encourage you to follow me on X because I'm active all over the place there. Real TJ Haynes on X. Okay. Rather than show this to you, I think I'm just going to read it, okay? Try and make my life a little easier as I round out the bottom of this show. This one is called Truth Matters, Preference Doesn't. Now, if you're catching the video, or even probably in the audio, you'll be able to catch this. It sounds like I'm reading, because I am. Mostly I'm going to be reading this, okay? Truth Matters, Preference Doesn't. Let's start with some truth bombs from St. Augustine of Hippo. Believe that you may understand. Do not seek to understand that you may believe. Sermon 43 by St. Augustine. Believe that you may understand. Do not seek to understand that you may believe. This is especially important in modern church culture, modern Catholic culture, because a lot of people want to understand before they assent, before they believe, before they agree. They want to understand first. Well, that's not evil, right? And that's not stupid. Oops, there we go. It's not evil and it's not stupid, but it may be a little foolish because truth often is not easy to understand right out of the gate. Sometimes truth takes time to understand. Sometimes it takes weeks, months. Sometimes it takes years. There are things that I believed at 14 simply because the church taught it, but I didn't understand it. And I would continue to not understand it for many, many years later. Believe that you may understand. Do not seek to understand so that you can believe. You have to believe first. Understanding will come later with the development of your mind, the illumination of your intellect by grace, context and lived experience. Sometimes that brings us to an understanding. Okay? Believe what the church teaches. Don't wait to understand it. And believe it even if it seems to make no sense. Obviously, it's okay to analyze, to question. Obviously, that's okay. But believe first, and understanding will come. Next quote, if you believe what you like in the gospel. Now, in this case, folks, I did 2 quotes and then the reflection. Usually I'll do one extended quote and then a reflection. But today, this one, I have 2 quotes. If you believe what you like in the gospel and reject what you don't, it isn't the gospel that you believe, but yourself. That one's kind of obvious, right? Especially if you're a practicing Catholic. That's something you don't need explained. If you believe what you like in the gospel and reject what you don't, it's not the gospel you believe, but it's yourself. A lot of people do that. They pick and choose what they believe in the gospel. If you think it's only modernists or the modernized who do that, you are sorely mistaken. Because there are people in the church, there are people in the center who do that to some varying degree, and there are people on the right in the church. I see it all the time. I'm admonishing this in people all the time on the right in the church, believing what they want in the gospel. Justice, justice, justice. Pack them up and ship them out. You're believing what you want in the gospel. You're not believing what the gospel actually preaches. Anyway, let's go on to the reflection. Augustine is saying that when preference takes the lead and truth is put in the background, the result isn't understanding, it's self-confirmation. What you have there is not understanding. It's merely self-confirmation. It's a rejection of truth, and it's a rejection of reality. Ideologues are famous for this, whether political or religious. For instance, in politics, we don't ask, is this true? We ask, who said it? Who said it? If it came from someone on our side, then it's believed without scrutiny. If it came from someone on the other side, it's dismissed before it's even considered. Isn't that true, folks? Facts don't change minds. Tribal alignment does. It's not uncommon that you find something that the liberals hold true and defend that the conservatives have been saying for generations. But the liberals get it wrong. The reverse is true, too. Some things that were held true in political liberal circles for generations that now conservatives slowly but gradually adopt, but it changes. Sometimes it becomes more true, and sometimes it becomes less true, right? Tribal alignment changes minds. Facts do not in the world of politics, right? So in other words, what we're getting from Augustine, how do we apply that to, in this case, politics? Now, how do we apply it to Catholic life? Check this out. I wonder if I can show this to you. Nope. I have a range of buttons and things here. Sometimes I'm not sure which does what right away. There we go. Sometimes I don't do these every day, so I forget which button is doing which. Okay, anyway. Now we're getting down to here in Catholic life. Certain doctrines get put on trial. Teachings on sexuality, marriage, judgment, repentance are treated like suggestions or opinions rather than the truth. Scripture is quoted when it comforts, and it's tossed away when it confronts. Scripture is quoted when it comforts, and tossed away when it confronts. Oh boy, ain't that the truth. In media consumption, how does this manifest? We're devoted to outlets that tell us what we already believe. I'm conservative, so I watch Fox News. I'm more progressive or liberal, so I watch CNN and MSNBC. I only get Catholic news from, Vatican News. Or I only get Catholic news from LifeSite News. Oh boy, is that a freaking mistake. You understand how it comes to bear? We're devoted to outlets that tell us what we already believe, and we reward them with our trust. Not because they're necessarily trustworthy, but because they're emotionally validating. They're telling us what we want to hear, so they must be truthful, because after all, what they're saying speaks to what I've always believed, right? Whether you're on the right or on the left, this is a risk. Go back to Augustine. If you believe what you like and reject what you don't, I'm just modifying it. If you believe what you like and reject what you don't, it's not the truth that you believe, but yourself. Let's continue. This is exactly Augustine's warning in action. Once preference because that's the theme, right? It's preference over truth. Once preference becomes the standard, once preference becomes the standard, belief turns into curation. We don't receive truth, we cherry pick it. We choose preference over truth, and we do so to our own peril, because truth will not be ignored for long. Reality hits back, and hard. People hate the truth. For the sake of whatever it is, they love more than the truth. They love truth when it smiles warmly on them, and hate it when it rebukes them. I think that was also St. Augustine. That sounds far too smart for me, but I forgot to cite where I got that from, but I'm pretty sure that was Augustine. People hate the truth for the sake of whatever it is they love more than the truth. They love truth when it smiles warmly on them and hate it when it rebukes them. Pretty powerful stuff. So I delivered this as Augustine's warning against the current paradigm of preference over truth. Folks, we especially do see this in the Catholic world. And it's the most disturbing thing in the Catholic world because we're supposed to be the ones who love the truth, right? That's supposed to be our thing. That's our superpower. We love the truth. But I can tell you, when you're an evangelizer, you have a lot of interactions with a lot of different kinds of people in the church. So as an active evangelizer, you do have a real deep and clear understanding of what's out there. right? And I'm not saying I'm the only one. Obviously, I'm not. So I can tell you, this is kind of spreading like a wildfire that Catholics have preferences. And they love those preferences more, not all Catholics, of course. They love those preferences more than they love the truth. And that becomes a problem, because if you are unable to see the truth, right, and if you are unable to recognize it on your own, or unable to see it when someone presents it to you and shows you why it's true, if you're unable to receive the truth, you're going to be unable to grow in holiness. Because growing in holiness means becoming more like God, and God is truth itself. God is truth himself. Above and beyond that, something that I said in, also I think this was an X Spaces session where I said this, the Antichrist will fool many. If we are unable to discern truth, if we are unable to look at something that looks so much like the truth, but it isn't, but we look at it and we're unable to see that's not the truth, it's a lie, it's a falsehood. If we don't have that faculty, or that facility rather, if we can't see the truth, the Antichrist will be able to fool us very easily. Now, maybe you won't be around when the Antichrist shows up. Maybe you will be. But your children, maybe they will be. Your grandchildren, maybe they will be. If you don't have this skill for identifying the truth and separating it from a lie masked to look just like the truth, if you do not have this skill, you will not have it to pass on to your children, to your grandchildren, to your neighbor, to whoever it is that's in your care. You cannot pass on what you do not possess. Pope Leo is concerned about this generational rupture in handing down the faith. I will broaden that to another problem, a generational rupture in handing down the tools it takes to grow in holiness and to become superheroes in virtue. Take it to the bank, because your brother will never lie to you. And that, my friends, is the fathers know best. Although I got to say, it's looking a little bit like T.J. Haynes knows best, because I think I one-upped St. Augustine there on that one. No, just kidding. I can't one-up anybody. I'm really pretty dumb. So when I say things like that, I want you to know I'm joking. I don't really believe those things when I say things like that. Okay? So before I close out this episode, I want to remind you one last time. In fact, I want to beg you. In fact, I want to threaten you. Follow me on socials at RealTJHaynes, and check me out at CatholicFirebrand.com. Throw your email address in there, man. It's free, and I don't abuse your information. The thing is, the internet is based on algorithms. The only way to reach you these days, it's not like the old days where Google search could, introduce you to someone's work pretty easily. It's not like that now. It all comes down to the algorithm. And the algorithm is not friendly, number one. And number two, every platform, everything that uses an algorithm, X, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, anything that uses an algorithm, it's very, very saturated. It is super, super saturated. So now you're really competing for attention, and the competition is very, very tight. Very super tight, especially as a Catholic broadcaster. The best way I can think of to get around that is that newsletter, CatholicFirebrand.com. Now, I have content. I have articles there. I have exclusive commentary that you only get as a subscriber to that website or to the newsletter. So there's stuff there, but it's also where you go to sign up for the newsletter so that you stay in the know. You don't have to rely on an algorithm. Maybe the algorithm will tell you where I'm starting to do a live show or where I'm posting, whatever. Maybe the algorithm will tell you this update. Maybe it won't. Usually it won't. But if you sign up for the newsletter, you get notified every time of member exclusives or news and updates and stuff like that. If I get deplatformed from YouTube, which would not shock me at all, if that were to happen, where can you find me next? Well, I can't go to YouTube to tell you. Can't go to socials to tell you because the algorithm probably won't send it to you. Less than 1% of the people who follow me, for instance, on X, less than 1% of the people who follow me see anything that I post. Less than 1% of the almost 3,000 people who follow me. So let's not rely on an algorithm. Don't rely on a middleman. CatholicFirebrand.com. throw your email address in there, be a part of the crew, and definitely consider checking me out and following me everywhere on socials, Real TJ Haynes. But also, I've been super active. I've been doing a lot of interesting stuff on X, and I really hope you follow me there. Even if you're not already on X, you're like, yeah, I don't want, X is full of morons. X is full of mean people. All that is true. But it's not as bad as Threads. But if all you do is just you sign up for X just to keep up with my stuff, believe me, I'm going to make it worth your while. Real TJ Haynes, all over on socials. I'm super active on X. I'm still fairly active on Instagram, but I'm also present on all the others, and I post to those on occasion as well. Check out the Discord, discord.gg, discord.gg/firebrand, and be part of the crew, man. Be a part of the family. Okay, I think you'll dig it. This has been an episode of Firebranded, and I am a wiped out TJ Haynes, the Catholic firebrand himself. Thank you for joining me today. Check me out everywhere on socials at Real TJ Haynes. Be a part of the crew. Go to CatholicFirebrand.com. And I'll see you on the next one. Thank you all for joining me. God bless you. And God be with you all. TJ Haynes signing out of here. Bye-bye. All the pain you shouldered on your own. Here's hope.